Because his mother owed money to a loan shark, her 8-year-old daughter was taken on the street. Even though her mother pleaded hoarsely, it didn't earn a shred of pity from the debt collector.
내일 4시까지 돈 가지고 와.
내일은 꼭 가겠습니다.
야, 강명자, 내가 얘 비싼 거 먹이고 선물 사주고.
The poor little girl, Seong-yi, became collateral for the debt. But on the way back, the fierce-looking debt collector, the uncle, acted out of character. Not only did he buy Seong-yi a delicious chicken leg burger, he also pulled a stuffed doll from his car and tossed it to her, telling her he would let her go as soon as he got the money tomorrow. But Seong-yi remained unmoved, her face full of grievance. As the car passed through a congested street, the uncle couldn't help but grumble. But Seong-yi's eyes lit up. She nimbly unbuckled her seatbelt and bolted out of the car.
야! 뭐해, 마, 빨리 잡아!
In the narrow alleys, Seong-yi relied on her familiarity with the terrain. Her figure weaved flexibly through the complex street corners. Her small feet pattered quickly on the stone pavement, while not far behind, 2 burly men were in hot pursuit. But Seong-yi didn't look back. She just ran more desperately. Every turn became a hope for escape in her heart. In the end, the chase concluded with Seong-yi's successful escape. Meanwhile, Seong-yi's mother, trying to raise money to save her daughter, went to her husband's former workplace. But her husband's ex-colleagues didn't help. They called the police. Ultimately, she was detained for being an illegal immigrant, and what awaited her was forced deportation. Although the police contacted Seong-yi's uncle, the uncle said he needed time to gather the money. In desperation, Seong-yi's mother requested to see the debt collector, Do-suk, at the police station, hoping Do-suk could take care of her child for a few more days. Then the child's uncle would pay him back and take the child away. He would also find a good family to adopt Seong-yi. She also asked Do-suk to tell Seong-yi a white lie, that her mom went somewhere far away to earn money. As long as she studied hard, her mom would come back for her when she grew up. For Do-suk, this was both infuriating and laughable. Not only did he not get a single cent of the debt he was chasing, he now had to help the debtor take care of their child. Although Do-suk was extremely reluctant, he softened and agreed in order to collect the debt. Although he seemed like a man who only spoke harshly, now in his heart, he began to sympathize with the pitiful mother and daughter. But Do-suk's most important task now was to find the escaped Seong-yi. Meanwhile, the escaped Seong-yi didn't limp her way home until evening. But at her doorstep, she ran into police who were there to search. She had to hide nervously in a corner and only opened the door after the police left. However, her mother was no longer in the house. She opened the fridge and took out the only milk and rice ball, sitting all alone on the sofa, crying while eating the expired food. She was like a small tree ravaged by a storm, without the embrace she used to lean on, without the warm and gentle sunshine. The world in her eyes became both distant and cold. The next morning, she took out her saved pocket money, packed her backpack, and wrote on a whiteboard, "I'm going to find Mom," then left alone. But she searched every familiar street corner and couldn't find a trace of her mother. Until sunset, she wandered alone on the deserted streets. Just then, a homeless man on the street spotted her. The homeless man tried to approach and lure Seong-yi. But Seong-yi, facing the man's offer of food, was not fooled. But the homeless man suddenly grabbed her, trying to take her by force. In the nick of time, Do-suk, who had been searching for Seong-yi, suddenly appeared. He rushed forward and started beating up the homeless man who was bullying Seong-yi. In the end, the homeless man could only flee in disgrace. Because the debt collector uncle suddenly appeared and protected her, Seong-yi took his hand for the first time.
왜?
저도 연락이 안 와요. 우리 엄마 좀 찾아주세요.
너네 엄마한테 연락 왔어.
엄마, 우리 엄마?
너네 엄마 한국에 없어. 돈 벌러 다시 중국에 갔어. 이제 너 싫어서 다시는 안 온대.
아닌데, 나도 안 먹어.
너네 큰아빠가 너 데리러 온대요. 그리고 부잣집으로 너 입양 보낸대. 알아? 너 공부 잘하고 열심히 기다리고 있으면 그때 너네 엄마가 너 보러 온대. 안 그러면 안 온대.
다니라. 나 엄마 따라갈 거란 말이야. 엄마.
But no matter how much Do-suk explained, Seung-yi was already crying her heart out. On the way back, Seung-yi was still sobbing quietly. But she realized this tough-looking uncle wasn't a bad person. She realized this fierce uncle wasn't so scary after all. Perhaps an 8-year-old child's sense of right and wrong is just that simple. After that, while waiting for her uncle to pick her up, Seung-yi, being well-behaved and sensible, helped Do-suk and Jong-bae tidy up the room. Whenever she heard the two uncles returning home, she would stand at the door and wait for them with a smile. Although the uncles didn't say it out loud, seeing the clean and tidy house, they felt a hint of satisfaction in their hearts. One day, Seung-yi's uncle finally called. After confirming the exact amount of the debt, he arranged a time and place with Do-suk to pick Seung-yi up. The moment of parting drew closer, and in their daily interactions, the three of them seemed to have formed a warm family. Seung-yi thought Do-suk's name wasn't nice, so she gave him a nice name, Seong-dae. And to celebrate finally getting rid of this little burden, Do-suk and Jong-bae took Seung-yi to the mall for a day of fun. They bought her new clothes. Although they couldn't afford a frilly pink princess dress, they still picked the prettiest one from the discount rack. After hearing that Seung-yi really wanted to go to a concert, they generously took her to see her idol. After the concert, Seung-yi wanted to buy a souvenir cassette and CD of her idol. Do-suk had very little money left. Finally, looking at the pitiful and helpless Seung-yi, Do-suk hesitated, then pulled the last of his money out of his sock.
참 좋은 아빠세요. 딸이랑 같이 이렇게 줄도 서고 자상하시네요.
This was the first time anyone had said that they were father and daughter. Their faces looked a little awkward, but there was also a little happiness in their hearts. On the way back, Seung-yi naturally hugged Do-suk happily. The moment Seung-yi hugged him, for a man who had been single for decades, his heart had probably already melted. But despite this, he still put on a stern face and seriously warned Seung-yi not to easily trust any man, just like a real father nagging and warning his daughter. It was both touching and funny. The night before she left, Do-suk and Jong-bae made a cake out of chocolate pies, even putting a candle in it for Seung-yi to make a wish, symbolizing her farewell to the past and welcome to a new life. But Seung-yi didn't look happy at all. Uncle Jong-bae asked her why she was sad. She turned to look at Do-suk and said, "I don't know," before running into the room. Do-suk, finally free of the little burden, should have felt relieved to be free of this nuisance. But at that moment, he couldn't smile. The next day, Do-suk took Seung-yi to the station. He repeatedly told Seung-yi to call him immediately if anything happened. Finally, at the station store, Do-suk bought Seung-yi a portable cassette player, so she could listen to her idol on the go. Just as Seung-yi hugged Do-suk gratefully, her uncle arrived at the station. Finally, the uncle took Seung-yi. They waved goodbye to each other. Though silent, their eyes revealed their reluctance to part. The following days passed quickly. Do-suk and Jong-bae soon returned to their old lives. However, every time Do-suk went out to work, he was distracted. He lacked spirit. He was incredibly worried about Seung-yi. He called again and again, wanting to know how she was doing. But his pager never received a reply. Anxiety, worry, and longing swirled in his heart. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. He went straight to Seung-yi's uncle's house. But when he found the uncle, he learned that no family was willing to adopt Seung-yi. Instead, the uncle had sold the child for money. Furious, Do-suk lashed out at the uncle. Even more infuriating was the fact that Seung-yi had been sold to a seedy karaoke bar. She was an 8-year-old girl who wore shabby clothes every day, was ordered around by people in a grimy place. Seung-yi was scared and aggrieved every day. She had no way to contact her uncle. One day, a drunken customer caused a scene. He viciously smashed a bottle against the wall. Seung-yi was cut by the broken glass. Seeing the glass shards embedded in Seung-yi's small face, the karaoke bar owner who had adopted her refused to take her to the hospital to save money. He just perfunctorily cleaned and bandaged the wound. Fortunately, heaven looked after this poor little girl. Finally, Do-seok received the message. He quickly paged back his home phone number. Soon, he received a call from Seung-yi.
담보냐?
아저씨,
담보야, 너 우는 거야?
아저씨.
너 무슨 일 있어? 너 지금 살고 있는 집 주소 알아?
산시 김국 봉중 300번지 차차차 룸사롱.
뭐? 차차차 룸 개새끼들. 알았어, 너 꼼짝 말고 거기 있어. 아저씨 지금 갈 테니까 알았어?
When he heard the tearful voice on the phone, Jong-bae immediately started looking at a map. Then the two of them quickly drove to the location. When they arrived, Do-seok kept shouting. When Seung-yi heard the shouts, she ran quickly to the glass door.
아저씨! 아저씨! 아저씨!
He saw the wound on Seung-yi's small face through the glass door. He was heartbroken to the core. In a moment of desperation, he smashed the glass with a single punch. Then he took off his jacket and wrapped it around his hand. After clearing the glass, he carefully carried Seung-yi out. At that moment, looking at the bandaged wound on Seung-yi's face, Do-seok felt as if an invisible sharp blade had pierced his heart. The pain was indescribable and far surpassed physical sensation. His eyes revealed endless affection. Just then, the owner came out, having heard the noise. Do-seok angrily grabbed the woman by the neck. But the owner was not afraid. Instead, she demanded a ransom of 100,000 won. For Seung-yi's sake, Do-seok left the owner his business card. On the way back, Seung-yi looked at Do-seok's injured hand. She thoughtfully used her sleeve to gently wipe the bloodstains from his hand.
아저씨 손에서 피 많이 난다.
아저씨 괜찮아. 괜찮아. 잠 한숨도 못 잤지. 편하게 자. 안심하고.
After that, Seung-yi lay in Do-seok's lap and fell into a peaceful sleep. At that moment, Do-seok's feelings of fatherly love were stronger and more profound than ever before. From this point on, in Do-seok's heart, Seung-yi was no longer pawn to be used to pay a debt, but a treasure. This marked the beginning of Do-seok treating Seung-yi as his daughter. Once they got home, he sold some of his belongings and his car, and wired the money to the karaoke bar owner. To prevent Seung-yi's face from scarring, Do-seok didn't hesitate to spend a large sum of money on scar removal surgery for her. To enroll Seung-yi in school, Do-seok went to one school after another, but he was turned away by all of them because Seung-yi lacked a legal Korean identity. In the end, only one solution remained: to adopt Seung-yi. The only difficulty was getting Seung-yi's approval. Seung-yi had depended on her mother since she was little. In her mind, accepting Do-seok as her father meant abandoning her mother. Fortunately, after some persuasion from Jong-bae, Seung-yi finally let go of her concerns. The adoption process went smoothly. Just like that, the two became father and daughter. In Do-seok's heart, he truly loved Seung-yi as his own daughter. This relationship, even without blood ties, deepened the bond between the three of them as they lived together day after day. Do-seok changed from his former rough brute image. He would stand at the school gate every day. Seung-yi would pass by and remind him to dress properly. Seung-yi would have a lunchbox meticulously prepared by Do-suk every day. Seung-yi never disappointed the uncles. She always scored full marks and ranked first on every exam. The two uncles' hearts were filled with immense joy and pride. In their world, Seung-yi had long become the most precious treasure in their lives. Every bit of her progress, every achievement was the greatest reward for them. Seung-yi slowly grew up under her father's meticulous care.
승희야,
네.
바꿔.
In order to take better care of Seung-yi, Do-suk stopped working as a debt collector. Instead, he became a delivery man. However, he never married or had children of his own. He worked from dawn to dusk, scrimping and saving every penny. He devoted his entire heart to Seung-yi when Do-suk worried that picking her up on his delivery motorcycle would make her lose face in front of her classmates. Seung-yi was always magnanimous. She told him not to worry.
친구들 보기 불편하지?
아니, 괜찮아. 신경 쓰지 마. 그리고 사람들하고 있을 땐 제가 이름 좀 불러줘. 담보라고 하지 말고.
그래, 알았어. 나보야, 우리 맛있는 거 먹으러 갈까?
이런 거를 하니까.
그래, 남보.
She knew that, no matter what others thought of her father, it was enough for her to know his love for her. That was the greatest happiness in life. Time flew by. Before she knew it, it was the day of the college entrance exam. Do-suk had heard that eating malt candy before an exam would bring good results. So he prepared some for Seung-yi. However, Do-suk was actually more nervous than Seung-yi. He stood guard outside the exam hall in the heavy snow the entire time. He waited at the school gate with a sense of ceremony. He even prayed silently like the other parents. Seung-yi lived up to expectations by getting into a famous diplomacy college in Seoul. Before graduating, Seung-yi attended a school social event. But after 10 p.m., Do-suk started to worry incessantly. He paced back and forth by the door. He looked exactly like a father worried about his daughter coming home late. Suddenly, he heard the sound of a door opening. When he saw Seung-yi being carried home by a male student because she was drunk, Do-suk's face filled with worry and nervousness.
야, 수지야, 왜 이렇게 많이 취했어, 너?
오빠랑 결혼할 거야.
뭐? 야, 그게 아니고. 이 자식이.
After their daughter fell asleep, the two fathers interrogated Seung-yi's friend mercilessly. But they started smiled when they heard that the boy's parents were a doctor and a lawyer. While they were chatting, the phone rang. It turned out that Seung-yi's grandmother was on the other end of the line. She told Do-suk that Seung-yi's mother was critically ill and that she wanted Seung-yi to go with her back to her hometown to see her mother one last time. Although Do-suk was Seung-yi's guardian, he always understood that Seung-yi had the right to see her birth mother. It wasn't just about blood ties. It was also a daughter's duty. On the way there, Do-suk kept advising Seung-yi not to resent her gravely ill mother too much once they met. Even though her mother had abandoned her when she was young, it was because she had no other choice. Finally, Seung-yi returned to the home she hadn't seen in over a decade. She also finally saw her mother, who was gaunt from illness. Mother and daughter reunited. The years passed. A decade slipped away quietly, like fine sand. Each grain carried endless longing and anticipation. That bond, gently treated by time, finally brought their two hearts together again. Even though they faced a familiar yet slightly strange other, that tacit understanding of blood connection instantly overcame all barriers and distance. Time may change appearances, but it can never erase the purest of emotions. That evening, they enjoyed a long overdue family dinner. Though no one said much, though their relationships were complicated, they all shared the same love in their hearts. They all had an immense affection for Seung-yi. Seung-yi slept beside her mother at night. Her mother lovingly caressed her daughter's cheek. After years of heartache, she was finally comforted by seeing her daughter grown up safely, turned into complete satisfaction and comfort before her death. After her mother turned away, Seung-yi slowly opened her eyes. In that moment, she deeply understood all her mother had gone through. Her lack of understanding and longing for her mother turned into tears of happiness. Perhaps these few hours of companionship tonight were enough to make up for the time they had been absent from each other's lives. Before leaving, her mother told Do-suk that Seung-yi's father wasn't actually dead. He had run off with the loan money, abandoning her and Seung-yi. She hoped that Do-suk would also allow Seung-yi to meet her biological father. As Seung-yi left, she gave her mother all of her perfect score test papers and a childhood photo of them together. Her mother looked at those precious memories of her daughter's growth. Each one was so treasured, but she also felt deep remorse. She gave birth to Seung-yi but did not fulfill her duty to raise her. During the long years of separation, in the dead of every night, a mother's silent call echoed in her heart. Every spring rain and autumn frost seemed to narrate the pain of her daughter being far away, a pain like an invisible rope tightly strangling the mother's throat. The pain of being separated from her daughter was like a heavy mountain constantly weighing on the mother's heart. This morning, after waking up, Seung-yi saw a note left by Do-suk. The note said to eat on time. So Seung-yi prepared to lift the food cover, but accidentally knocked over a chopstick. And as she bent down to pick up the chopstick, she caught sight of Do-suk's shoes placed by the door. That pair of shoes carried all of Do-suk's hardships through wind and rain. As she gazed at her uncle Do-suk's worn-out shoes, it was just like when Do-suk went to her home to find little Seung-yi and gazed at her lost shoe. So Seung-yi gave Do-suk a call. She told her uncle that she was going to a camp activity. But what no one expected was that Do-suk was at the place where Seung-yi's father used to work. He wanted to find out where Seung-yi's father ended up. But in his excitement, he suddenly felt a wave of dizziness. Fortunately, he finally found news of Seung-yi's father. However, Seung-yi's father had already remarried and had children. Meanwhile, Seung-yi didn't go to the camp. Instead, she worked as a laborer for a few days and used her wages to buy Do-suk a new pair of leather shoes. Just as she returned home and placed the shoes by the door to surprise Do-suk, Do-suk called and asked Seung-yi to come out and meet him. But what Seung-yi didn't expect was that Do-suk took her to a restaurant. And his purpose was to have Seung-yi meet her biological father. Watching Seung-yi walk towards her father, Do-suk slowly turned and left. Perhaps, in that moment, he saw himself as merely an outsider. And that man was Seung-yi's real father. But to this daughter, with whom he had no blood relation, he silently gave his all to her like a real father would. He gave much more than her biological parents did. He did so without asking for anything in return. But his heart must have been incredibly worried, right? He was worried that his daughter would leave him after finding her biological father. What he didn't expect was suddenly Seung-yi to call at that moment.
여보세요.
아빠. 아빠. 안 들려?
승희야.
아니, 그냥 혼자 두고 가버리면 어떡해. 아빠가 데려다 줬음. 데리러도 와야지.
At that moment, Do-suk's heart was filled with myriad complex emotions. Father was the title he had waited so long to hear. He went from being extremely surprised to crying with emotion. He quickly told his daughter to stay where she was. Father will pick you up soon. Truthfully, Seung-yi has long since opened her heart. She had long accepted her uncle as her father. She just hasn't found the right opportunity to say it out loud. Probably because she never called him Dad. Do-suk thinks Seung-yi is still hoping to meet her biological parents. When Seung-yi's mother wants to meet him, her uncle agreed. He traveled a great distance to bring her to meet her mother. When the mother tells the uncle that the girl's father is still alive, the uncle goes to meet the heartless man without hesitation. Only after Seung-yi returns to his mother and meets his real father does she finally realize that Do-suk, whom she had always called uncle, was the person who loved her most in the world. He was the most important person in her life. He was the uncle who loved her the most. He was her father. As Do-suk rode his motorcycle, he no longer held back his emotions. She went to pick up her daughter with a heart full of joy, but tragedy fell from the sky. Ten years later, Seung-yi became a diplomatic translator. Seung-yi and Jong-bae tirelessly searched for Do-suk. They looked for everyone with the same name, but they could never find a trace of him. Time and again, hope turned to disappointment. Seung-yi could only console herself with the idea that no news was good news. That changed when Seung-yi saw a slogan on a street advertisement. She remembered that she had once given her uncle the name Song-dae. She quickly had Jong-bae turn the car around and go to the police station. With the help of the police search, they found a man named Park Song-dae in a nursing home. They rushed to the nursing home, and Seung-yi was right. Park Song-dae was Do-suk. As it turns out, Do-suk had a stroke after an accident, which caused him to lose his memory. However, when the accident occurred, he had a small notebook containing the name Park Song-dae. The medical staff recorded it under that name too. When they saw Do-suk, they saw that the once incredibly spirited man had become a disoriented patient. He could no longer communicate normally with others.
종배 나왔어요. 신이 좋았어요. 야.
나야, 승희. 알아보겠어? 나 담보. 아저씨 딸 승희. 나 알아보겠어. 괜찮아. 괜찮아, 아저씨. 곧 알아보게 될 거야. 이제부터는 아저씨가 내 담보니까 정신 차릴 때까지 절대로 안 놔줄 거야. 알았지?
Seung-yi took out the new leather shoes that she had bought for Do-suk. But, as she prepared to put them on for him, she found a crumpled passbook hidden in his sock. Every deposit in it was related to Seung-yi. College tuition, birthday gifts, travel funds, marriage funds. The disoriented man before her had toiled for most of his life for his little pawn. He had given his all for his little pawn, emotionally and in life. He gave money and care. His kindness and responsibility gave his little pawn a happy life. But he did not give himself a happy ending.
내가 너무 늦게 왔지. 미안해. 아빠. 아빠 미안해.
It's been 10 years. Seung-yi searched for him the entire time. As she hugged him and cried, even though he had no memory, his eyes reddened and welled up with tears. His body always remembered the most important treasure of his life. Seong-yi, his little pawn. You are my pawn. You are the treasure I protect with my life. Later, at Seong-yi's wedding, a somewhat dazed Do-seok held his daughter's hand and gave her personally to the groom. As a real father would do, Do-seok had finally completed his mission. Through a wonderful twist of fate, they were originally strangers with no connection, yet they were tightly bound by the red thread of destiny. He was an ordinary, resolute man. She was like an injured fledgling, fragile and helpless, as if the world had forgotten her in a corner. When he met her, he resolutely embraced her without hesitation. He used his broad chest to shield her from the world's coldness and cruelty. They formed a deep father-daughter bond that transcended blood. In the long river of life that followed, this love, originally without blood ties, far surpassed the bonds of blood. It was as warm as the spring sun, as brilliant as the summer stars, as steadfast as autumn maple leaves, and as deep as the winter ocean. His mountain-like figure was his daughter's most solid shelter. Despite the absence of a blood connection, they had a profound affection and protection that went beyond blood. He used his broad, strong hands to hold up a vast sky for her. He used his firm and loving gaze to give her courage and strength to move forward fearlessly. He took steady, reliable steps to pave a solid, smooth path for her. He used his strong, sturdy arms to build an impenetrable wall around her. He used his vast, tolerant heart to embrace all her setbacks and disappointments. He used his optimistic and positive attitude to give her the faith and hope to never back down. Tell the story with heart, tell the story with sincerity. I'm gonna bring you to a world where true emotions unfold. I'm Pixie Low, journeying with you so that we both may grow.